Okay, we're back for the last segment of the show, and we have Bonnie on the phone, who is a caller. Bonnie, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. There might be some feedback, so I encourage you to turn your TV down so you can ask me the question, and then you can turn it up to get the answer. What is your question, Bonnie?
Well, I actually have a couple for you. I don't know why we're getting feedback. My TV is on mute. But at any rate, can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay. I'll try and speak right into the mouthpiece then.
Yep.
The first thing that I wanted to ask you about is if you've ever heard of there being a fungus link to diabetes. And the second one is, I understand that diabetics are notoriously deficient in an enzyme called 2,3-DPG, which helps and enables your cell to take in oxygen from the blood, and therefore gives you energy. However, if you are deficient in that enzyme, you don't have enough energy for your metabolism to work correctly. You're exhausted all the time because you don't have any energy. You don't have any oxygen utilization. And so if one way to increase that, I understand, is by exercise. However, if you cannot exercise, how can you increase that enzyme? So those are my two questions. If I didn't get too wild there,
Okay, so
I'd appreciate an answer.
Okay, so are you still there? Did she hang up? You may have. Okay. I'm not familiar with the enzyme that you are talking about. However, I could do a little bit of research with that and whether or not it's linked to diabetes. That could very well be. I don't know that. I do know that diabetes is a sheer function of, really when it gets down to where the rubber meets the road, it's insulin and the hormone that drives sugar into your tissues and the lack thereof, or the abundance thereof. And over time, the foods that we eat do cause obesity and increasing insulin production. Meaning, if you sit and you eat your meal, what ends up happening, let's suppose we're eating one of the foods that are high glycemic index foods. Let's take a carrot for say. Most people think carrots are good for you because they have beta carotene in them. But carrots have amylose. It's a very compact, it has all root vegetables do. And that is digested by the amylase in your saliva. And by the time you bite that carrot and chew it, it goes down to your system where it becomes pure sugar. So you might as well have ingested a couple of teaspoons of pure sugar. That being said, that overwhelms your pancreas to produce a ton of insulin to try and compensate for that now present sugar. What ends up happening in that, and I use the diagram in my office all the time, imagine you're at one of the hotels and they have one of the turnstile lobbies. Well, that is an insulin pump. If you can imagine you're sitting in, let's say, the Bellagio or any department stores and they have those revolving doors. Imagine that is an insulin pump. And if insulin is present, it is taking people, which are the sugar molecules, and throwing them into the lobby, which is the cell of the fat cell, not your muscle cell, your fat cell. And then when the lobby of the hotel or the lobby of the fat cell becomes too overcrowded with people, the fire marshal shows up and says, you have to leave. Well, how do the glucose molecules in the fat cell or the lobby leave? They cannot leave as sugar molecules. They leave as free fatty acids or triglycerides or other forms of a lipid. And that being said, when your liver sees an abundance of free fatty acids or triglycerides, it might assume that you are starving, and therefore the liver does not absorb glycogen or does not produce glycogen. Because in a normal meal, your liver should produce glycogen out of some of the sugar that you eat to help you dispense sugar over time in a small amount in your body to keep you from getting hungry. So have you ever eaten one of those meals where you've you know you've just eaten a huge meal, and then all of a sudden you're hungry within an hour or two. How can that be? I just got through eating. Well, guess what? Your body, your liver didn't store glycogen, it stored fat. And that being said, you find yourself eating again in a short period of time because you have high insulin levels and things of that nature. Now, if that enzyme you're talking about is all related to that particular process, then it very well might be. And then if that's the case, then it is a outgrowth of your errors in digestion, your errors in food intake, and the way you correct that is to change your diet, which causes you to lose a little bit of weight. You're not so hungry after your meal, and then you maybe have a little more energy. And I guess energy or burning energy or exercise conditioning begets better exercise conditioning and the feeling of doing something more positive. So if you have 50, 60 extra pounds on your body and you're walking around, then you're certainly more fatigued carrying that extra weight. I mean, take a backpack and put 20 pounds worth of rocks in it and then carry it around and say, how does that feel carrying that around all day long? And it probably doesn't feel, the best in the world. So I don't know if that answered your question. I mean, I know what I know with related to that. I don't do a lot of research with regards to the diabetes and all the enzymes. And I know that as medicine expands and unlocks more of the secrets of the body through genetics and things of that nature, that they certainly may find a cure for diabetes with related to some enzyme being able to get you to do that. I do know one of the enzymes that I tended to think that was not very good, which was CoQ10, is one of those enzymes that we do see that seems to be deficient in some diabetics. And certainly as it goes, we tend to treat diabetics' elevated cholesterol with statins and drugs that we do that. And in doing so, we decrease CoQ10 inside of the mitochondria. And that very well could, at some level, slightly predispose you to diabetes by decreasing CoQ10. It definitely is related to the muscle pain associated with taking drugs like lovastatin and torvastatin, which is Lipitor and drugs of those natures. So I know I've said it on the show before, there are the lipophilic, the ones that love fat, and the ones that love water, the hydrophilic. Unfortunately, the hydrophilic statins are much weaker than the lipophilic, and that being said, they don't do as good job, but they have much less side effects with regards to muscle aches and pains. And CoQ10 is one of those things you could take if you're taking a statin, and it might help to alleviate some of those pains. And I see that a lot in people. They tend to blame it on arthritis. I had a gentleman in today who was having a lot of pain in his hands and his shoulder, and he's on Crestor. So while you may be subtly thinking that you're doing well on your particular cholesterol medication, you may be just having a little bit more arthritis and a little bit more muscle pain and a little more things that maybe you've just learned to live with, but certainly be due to your statin. And again, it is not the cholesterol you ingest as much as it is the saturated fat and the sugar that you ingest at the same time. Those two are a kind of a they're married to each other. You know, when you have sugar and fat, you're going to produce fat. Fat goes to fat. When you eat fat, it's going to be absorbed in your fat, and when you eat an overabundance of sugar, it goes to fat. So is there any wonder why we have so many obese people? I remember I was driving recently in Texas, and I stopped at one of these places, roadside thing called Buc-ee's, and I mean it's this huge establishment. I mean they've got gas stations, and I mean everybody's in there, and you're walking through there, and it's just mobbed. I mean people just everywhere. And I go back out and I sit in the car, and there's this one guy, and I mean he's eating some sausage on a stick. He weighs 350, 400 pounds, and then he pulls open a drink, which is a malt shake, and eats that right after that. And it's just too many calories. There's just too much good food out there for us as a population. And we live in a town where we have body by buffet. You know, you go. Fortunately, they're raising the prices on those buffets. They're not so cheap anymore, probably because people are running out of slot machine money. But that being said, you go in there and spend $4 on a meal and drop $10 at the slot machine. You'd be better off going to Whole Foods and buying better meat and staying away from the free food at the casinos. But it's very important, again, to I don't know how many times I need to say it. I'd say it all day long. Just do get up and walk after you eat. I was listening to a CME the other day, and this gentleman took his daughter to France for some cooking school because she graduated college, and he was afraid about how much weight he was going to gain. He actually lost 2 pounds on the trip. Now, this is a physician who's speaking to other physicians, said he lost 2 pounds just walking to everything. So anyway, that being said, I can't stress that enough. If you can't walk because of some disability, find something you can do to be active in some way, either that or reduce the sugar content in your food, and certainly reduce the fast sugars in your food. Get rid of the oatmeals, get rid of the cream of wheats, get rid of the cereals, at least temporarily. Try to eat a little bit more protein and see if that doesn't make a difference. And remember, those people that go from nice and thin like myself, when I was 18 to being theoretically 30 pounds overweight today, I did that very, very slowly. Just a few calories here, just a few calories there. It's just 10 calories a day over 20 years is 20 pounds. 1 pound a year, 10 calories a day. That's just one cookie. That's just maybe one extra grape. So you can see the magnitude of the problem we face when we're eating just one extra 10 calories. You have to figure out a way to burn those 10 calories extra a day to keep your weight off. And that's why I suggest you become a little bit more active every day. And an apple a day will not keep the doctor away. At any rate, I want to thank you all for the loyal watchers who watch this program. I do get comments when I'm out in the community, and I do appreciate the fact that people tune in and listen. And a lot of times you never know who your audience is and who there is unless they call in, and most people are afraid to call in. And with that, we're going to sign off for tonight, and I'll hopefully see you back same time, same place next week. Have a good night, Pahrump.